Hey there, just a heads up, this episode of the Judo Science Podcast was created with help from AI. Some of the voices you'll hear are synthetic, but the ideas come from real research and real judo.
Imagine for a moment you're standing right there on an Olympic podium. That gold medal, it's heavy around your neck, the anthem's playing.
Yeah.
That's the moment we all see, right? But what about the invisible stuff? The psychological forces that push an athlete through years of just brutal training, injuries, all that pressure. How do they do it?
It really is the ultimate question, isn't it? We see the physical side, the skill, but the mental game, that deep internal drive.
Yeah.
That's often the real story. What's actually going on inside a champion's head?
And that's exactly what we're diving into today. Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Let's do it.
We are plunging into the minds of Olympic judo champions, specifically focusing on the Brazilian national team. Our mission here is to try and uncover the core motivational factors. What keeps these top-tier athletes pushing their limits day in, day out? Think of this as your shortcut, really, to understanding that relentless mental game.
Yeah, and to help us unpack all that, we've got insights from two really significant research papers. They're both by Sergio Luis Carlos dos Santos and his colleagues. One's very recent, from 2025, and there's an earlier foundational study from 2017 as well.
Okay.
And both of them zero in on these motivational aspects for Olympic and world champion judo athletes. So it gives us a pretty solid look at what makes these judokas tick.
All right, so let's start with the athletes themselves. Who were these individuals at the heart of the studies, the champions behind the judo gi?
Well, the researchers looked at a group of 41 high-level Brazilian judokas. It was a good mix, 20 women and 21 men.
Okay, pretty balanced.
Yeah, really balanced, which is great for getting a full picture. Age-wise, they were between 20 and 35, right in that peak competitive window for most elite sports.
And critically, these weren't just like up-and-comers, right? We're talking about people at the absolute top.
Absolutely. Every single one had significant experience. They'd been doing judo for years, started competing pretty young, typically between 13 and 20. But the key thing, the real differentiator, they were medal winners.
Yeah.
From huge international events. We're talking the Olympics, World Championships, the IJF, Grand Prix circuit. These are the best of the best, seriously.
Okay, so they had already reached that pinnacle. That definitely adds a layer of significance to what motivates them, doesn't it? So they've got these elite athletes. How did the researchers actually, get inside their heads? What was the method?
They used carefully designed questionnaires. Were actually validated by 3 top experts, people with tons of experience in judo competitions themselves.
That seems important. You need people who get the sport.
Exactly. That expert validation is crucial because it makes sure the questions are hitting the right notes, capturing the specific psychological stuff that matters in elite judo.
Makes sense.
And the questionnaires themselves, they didn't just pull them out of thin air. They built on established psychological tools, things like the Athletic Coping Skills Inventory 28, the ACSI 28, which looks at mental toughness, how you handle pressure.
Okay.
The Perception of Motivational Climate Questionnaire Sport, or PMCSQ, that gets at how athletes see their training environment. And also Deci and Ryan's self-motivation theory, which explores, intrinsic versus extrinsic drives.
So a solid foundation in sports psychology research.
Definitely. A really strong theoretical and methodological backbone.
Okay, so they had these 39 questions. How did they group them together for the analysis?
Right. So they grouped the answers into 4 main areas. The first one they called heterogeneous, which is basically a catch-all for background info, demographics, how long they've practiced judo, general interest, stuff like that.
Got it. Mixed bag.
Yeah, exactly. Then judo practices that looked at training conditions, other physical stuff they did. Third was satisfaction, measuring happiness, self-esteem, sense of autonomy, social connections within judo. And the last one was motivation. Looking at both their current drive and, past motivation for judo and competing, it covered a lot of ground.
Seems really thorough.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get to the core findings then. What were the key motivators? What did the research say really defined this champion's mindset?
So the research pinpointed a clear, sort of prioritized list of factors that were really prevalent among these top judokas. These aren't just fleeting things. They're the crucial drivers for sustained high performance.
Okay, lay them on us.
Number one was outcome motivation. Just a really strong, almost fundamental desire for results, for achievement. They're driven by winning.
Well, that makes sense for medal winners, right?
Absolutely. It's not just about taking part. They want the result.
Okay, what else?
Second, coping with adversity. This isn't just about bouncing back from an injury physically, but that mental resilience to handle setbacks, losses, the sheer grind of it all. Judo's incredibly demanding.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Third, peak under pressure. These athletes don't just manage when it counts, they actually excel. Think about that Olympic final. The score's tied, seconds left. That's when they shine.
That ability to rise to the occasion,
Yeah.
That's huge. What else?
Fourth was setting goals and mental preparation. This points to a really disciplined, strategic way of thinking, planning, visualizing, getting mentally ready. Fifth, concentration, that intense focus during training, during a match. Sixth, no worries, basically. The ability to manage anxiety, stay calm under pressure, mental control.
Right.
And finally, number 7, eager to be trained. This one's interesting. It shows this consistent, proactive desire to learn, to take coaching on board, to just keep getting better, a real growth mindset.
That eager to be trained one really stands out. It's not just about talent, is it? It's about actively seeking improvement.
Exactly. It's that constant hunger.
And what's the bigger picture here? What kind of vision drives these motivators?
Well, what's really fascinating is that the athletes were mostly motivated by future rewards, not just, immediate gratification.
Okay.
It's not about the quick win or feeling good right now. It speaks volumes about their long-term vision. They're focused on that Olympic medal 4 years down the line or the world title next season. For anyone listening, that's a huge takeaway. Lasting success isn't usually built on instant rewards, but on chasing those significant, far-off goals.
Yeah, connecting that daily grind to something bigger, something distant. Okay, let's shift from the mindset to the actual work. What did the study find about their practice habits, their satisfaction, their motivation levels?
Well, they looked closely at judo practice frequency, and honestly, the commitment level is incredible. Get this. 65%, nearly 2/3, said they trained a lot. That means 6 or 7 times a week.
Wow.
And another 30% trained fairly, which is still 4 or 5 times a week. It's basically a full-time job, an intense, unwavering dedication.
That's a massive time investment. So how do they feel about all that effort? What about the satisfaction part?
Right. So when they looked at satisfaction, which covered happiness, self-esteem, autonomy, social stuff, almost everyone reported high levels. Like 47.5% felt fairly satisfied, and another 42.5% felt a lot satisfied.
So the vast majority felt good about it.
Yeah, it suggests they're getting a really positive internal experience from being so involved in judo. It's tough, but it's fulfilling work for them.
So they find real purpose in it.
Yeah.
And what about their raw motivation scores?
The motivation group, they showed what the researchers called a rising profile demonstrating high motivation. Basically, they were highly driven. 50% felt a lot motivated, and another 37.5% felt fairly motivated.
Okay.
So they're not just showing up, they're consistently, genuinely fired up from within.
And something I thought was really interesting in the paper, did they see any difference between the men and women on these points? Practice, satisfaction, motivation?
That's a great point, and what's fascinating is no. The research found no significant statistical differences between the male and female athletes in any of those areas: practice frequency, satisfaction, or motivation. It really suggests that these psychological traits, this kind of dedication and internal drive, it's universal among these elite judokas. It transcends gender. The mental blueprint seems pretty consistent.
That's really important. These aren't gendered qualities. Okay, now let's get to the connections, the sort of aha moments. How did these different elements, practice, motivation, satisfaction, relate to each other?
Okay, this is where it gets really insightful. They found a statistically significant positive correlation between judo practice and motivation.
Meaning
The stronger the motivation, the more they practiced. The correlation coefficient share was 0.37, which is a moderate positive link, and the p-value was really low, 0.0177, meaning it's very unlikely to be just chance.
Okay, so motivation leads to more practice. That makes sense.
Right. It tells us that strong motivation doesn't just help you endure training. It actively induces the practice of judo. It's that internal drive pushing them onto the mat consistently. The more motivated you are, the more you want to do the thing. For anyone listening trying to build a habit, that's key. Find that intrinsic motivation.
That's a powerful loop. Motivation drives action. What about practice and feeling good? the satisfaction part.
They found a link there, too. A strong, positive, and statistically significant correlation between judo practice and satisfaction. The rho here was even stronger, 0.47, with a tiny p-value of 0.00022.
So more practice equals more satisfaction.
Pretty much. The more these athletes practiced, the greater their satisfaction. It's like an internal reward system. Putting in the work feels good, which then reinforces wanting to do the work. The engagement itself is deeply rewarding.
Okay, so motivation pushes practice. Practice brings satisfaction. Seems logical. But there was a twist, wasn't there? Something surprising.
There absolutely was, and this is maybe the most intriguing part. They found no direct correlation between motivation and satisfaction.
Wait, really? No link between being motivated and feeling satisfied?
Directly, no. The rho value was tiny, 0.13, and the p-value was high, 0.4202, meaning it wasn't statistically significant at all.
Huh. So you can be super motivated, aiming for those future goals, but that motivation itself doesn't automatically make you feel satisfied right now. That feels counterintuitive.
It does, right. But it's a massive insight. It suggests you can be incredibly driven by those future rewards we talked about, but that raw motivational energy doesn't translate directly into immediate good feelings.
So where does the satisfaction come from then?
It comes from the practice. It's the engagement, the act of doing the judo that builds the satisfaction. It's almost like satisfaction is the reward for the effort that motivation fueled. Motivation gets you there, but consistently doing the work is what generates that deep sense of fulfillment.
Wow. Okay, that's a really subtle but important distinction. Fulfillment isn't just from wanting it. It's built through the action. It's the doing that brings the joy.
Yeah.
But even with all this drive and satisfaction from practice, there's a downside, right? Something about resilience.
Yes, absolutely. Despite all these positive factors, the researchers did conclude that, generally speaking, the athlete's resilience reduces over a long period of time.
Wow.
Even these champions, highly motivated, finding satisfaction in their work, they still face mental and physical fatigue. Their ability to bounce back isn't infinite. It just highlights the huge challenge of sustaining an elite career for years and years. It's not always up and up.
That's a really important reality check. It underscores the human element. So, stepping back for the bigger picture, what challenges did the researchers themselves mention? And what does this mean for sports psychology going forward?
Well, one big thing they pointed out is a broader issue in the field. The lack of proper psychological instruments specifically designed to measure motivation accurately in Olympic combat sports.
Right. How do you really quantify something like inner drive?
Exactly. It's tough. Motivation shifts, it's complex, it's influenced by so many things. Self-report questionnaires are useful, but they're just a snapshot. And these sports have intense emotional and cognitive demands that are hard to standardize and measure.
I can see that. And did they mention anything else making it tricky?
Yeah, they did. They mentioned the particular Oriental philosophy that underlies sports like Judo and also Taekwondo.
How does that complicate things?
Well, this cultural dimension, the emphasis on discipline, respect, self-mastery, it adds layers that might not fit neatly into standard Western psychological models or questionnaires. It makes interpreting things like long-term resilience and motivation even more complex.
So the cultural context is really key.
Yeah.
Did economics come into it at all?
They touched on it. The authors, some being athletes themselves, noted that, while, yeah, economic factors matter, financial support helps these deeper motivational factors are still inherently complex and hard to measure. The 2017 paper mentioned the increased recognition for athletes after Rio 2016, and the 2025 paper updates that, looking towards Paris 2024 and LA 2028. So, the financial side of judo in Brazil is improving, becoming more professional.
Which you'd think would be purely positive.
Mostly, yes, but ironically, it can make it even trickier to isolate the purely intrinsic motivation. Is the drive coming solely from the love of the sport, or is it mixed with these newer external opportunities? It's a complex mix.
That makes sense. So looking ahead, what's the goal for future research in this area?
Well, the hope is to develop better, more nuanced tools that can account for both the philosophical aspects and these changing economic factors. The aim is to get a more complete, holistic picture of what truly fuels athlete longevity and success at the highest level.
Okay, so we've really journeyed through the psychology of these elite judokas. We've seen their core drivers that outcome motivation, coping with adversity, being eager to train, and we uncovered those fascinating links, how motivation fuels practice, and how practice in turn builds deep satisfaction. And that surprising disconnect, where raw motivation doesn't directly equal immediate satisfaction.
Exactly. It's the doing that brings the satisfaction. The heart of a champion is clearly a very complex, dynamic thing.
It really is. And the quest to fully understand and measure it, especially in sports like judo with such rich cultural layers, that quest definitely continues.
Absolutely. Sports psychologists are still working to refine how we understand and support that sustained drive.
Which brings us to a final thought for you, our listener, to mull over. Thinking about these findings, particularly how resilience can fade over time even with high motivation, and considering judo's unique cultural context, what kind of innovative approaches could coaches or sports psychologists develop? How could they help athletes not just find motivation, but actually sustain that deep, intrinsic drive throughout a whole career? Maybe by really emphasizing that satisfaction from practice loop, or maybe by shifting how success is defined beyond just the medals.
Yeah, how do you keep that fire burning brightly for the long haul?
Something to think about as we continue to learn from these incredible athletes.
Next time on the Judo Science Podcast, Episode 18, Beyond the Medals, the True Cost of Pursuing Olympic Judo.